I've got my picture that I've been using for my swatches up, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to use my eyedropper to select that beautiful purple color that I had before. I'm going to do my outlining in that purple color. I just want to maintain some consistency. Hide that, zoom in, and I am just going to literally start outlining everything I can with that color. I've got this brush over here. This is a really solid brush with a hardness of 100, and I'm going to decrease the brush size. So I'll probably go to about 4. And then I'm going to just start outlining everything. So make sure you're on the line layer, and you can lock your other layers so you don't accidentally do your lines where you're not supposed to. And you can just start drawing your lines. So these are just outlines, and I'm going to continue outlining for a little while and then I'll come back. The thing I thought of is if this was a zoo, the pool of water might be less natural. So I maybe want to use like a solid oval shape and make my elliptical pool. And then remember to just grab. Now I'm going to go up to select. I did the selection editor, that's right. Selection editor brought up this dock over here, and then I had this option when you hover your cursor over it, I had the option to paint along the selection outline. So I clicked on that, that brought this up. My width that I have been using for drawing is 4 pixels, so I'm going to decrease that to 4. It's going to be the solid color, it's just going to use the color that's in the foreground palette. And so there it is. Then you can do select none, and you've got your perfect pool, but the lines are overlapping, so I'm going back over to my layers, make sure I've got my pool set up, and I'm going to zoom in, and then I'm going to erase. So I just don't want my brush that huge, huh? So decrease that. But I just basically am wanting to erase over here where that ellipse is not actually going to be showing up because it's going to be behind the panda bear and behind the rocks, okay? Now, one of the things that you may be noticing is the fact that you've got all these jagged edges, and that's because GIMP is a pixel program. So basically what it's doing is it's working on a square grid and it's putting in little pixels of color, so it does get choppy, and that's where in digital arts you learn how to use a vector program so that you don't have pixelated designs like this. I'm going to create some structures in the background that are man-made, so I'm going with the rectangle select tool, and I am just going to create a new layer. Let's do layer, new layer, and I'm going to call this buildings. Okay, and click OK. And let's just start building some rectangular structures. So gotta zoom in so I can see what I want to get rid of and what I don't. Okay, so I've got a pretty big brush, and I made sure that I was working on the buildings layer before I did anything else. I'm just getting rid of extra lines I don't need. I just made a whole bunch of rectangles and just gotta erase where they would be hidden behind the mountains, right? Lines, what building lines, whoops, what building lines I want to keep and what I want to get rid of. So I'm going to get rid of this one right here. Oops. You know, I'm just hitting Control Z whenever I make a mistake and I don't like what I did. So it's not perfect, but I'm fine with it. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I've got my buildings layer, and I've got my lines, I've got my pool, and now I'm going to start working on color, and I may create separate layers for the color too. I'm going to grab my color palette, and for the panda, I think the fur, I'm going to go with that purple color that I used before. It's probably already saved here. Yes, I've already got that saved. Even though a panda isn't that color, I like the idea of kind of creating a unity, some harmony in my color palette. So I'm on the color layer and I am starting to fill in here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so I don't cross over my lines. Okay, so I've got my next color picked out, and I'm make sure I'm on the color layer, and I've got my paintbrush selected, got the size, and now I'm painting this area, and it's looking awesome. It's looking good. I keep on hitting Control S or Files, just save. Get a rectangle and select here, and I'm going to do that again. I'm going to get really close to where this blue border is because I don't want that to not match up perfectly. So what I'm doing here instead is I'm going to hit delete, and I'm going to delete everything inside there. That checkerboard in the background means that that's transparent. Then I'm going to do select invert, and now you'll notice my marching ants are surrounding this whole border. So there's my border. I can hit control copy, go over to my other layer, and I want that border to be on top of everything. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make sure my very top layer is selected because it's going to, wherever I paste this as a layer, it's going to go on top of that. So I'm going to go edit, paste as new layer, and notice it put it right up there. So that's my border. I'm just going to go in and paint this really quick. Time when I go to pick my color, I'm going to take my dropper, I'm going to put it right on there. That's going to pick the exact color. Now I can paint. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted it to look like. So, a couple little spots there that I missed. Maybe one right in here. Wanted to put the bars on there, and I had created my bars in this other window. Just make that visible, and I'm going to make these other layers invisible so I can see what I did, and I'm locking the rest of them so I don't accidentally change them around. So all I have to do is go select none, and then I can do select all, control C, And I can come over to my other image and gotta think, where do you want those bars? Do you want them to be on the very top like you did your border? Do you want them to be right underneath your border? I'm going to go ahead and give bars on top a try. If I want to move them, I can. So I'm going to edit, paste as a new layer. Okay, and there's my bars. Do I like it? Not so much. What could I do to change it? I think I want thinner bars. So I'm going to come over here and use the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and gonna just delete some of these, the very edges of these rectangles. Let's see if I can do that. Just erase some of those bars. Okay, gotta make sure you're on the right layer. It's not erasing anything because I have a selection. Still, it will only erase inside the selection. That's where I was clicking delete. So make sure you hit select none if you have those little guys and you're finding your computer is being unresponsive, right? New layer, and way better, right? Liking it way better. I've got my move tool. Oh, look what happens. This is one of the problems with the move tool, is it will start grabbing other things. So hit Control Z and lock your other layers so they can't be moved. Okay, and hopefully you can get that move tool to just move your bars, so you can get your bar just where you want it. Okay, I'm going to unlock it, and I'm going to grab my eraser tool, and I'm going to decrease the size of the brush, and I'm just going to try to like chop this bar off, and then I'll chop it off at the top, and I will chop it off. Okay, so this is your rotate tool, and kind of hoping I could just, there we go. Yeah, I think I'm going to have it at about that angle. I'll just click rotate. Then I'm going to move it, and I probably want to zoom out so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, grabbing it and moving it so that the bear is eating the bar. My bar, just do a little bit of erasing here. I want to be on my line layer. That's where I put my bar here. So I want to be on my bar layer, because what I'm doing is essentially going in and erasing where my bar is kind of like overlapping with my mouth, and where it should be going behind this hand, or I guess paw would be more appropriate. So wanting to give that illusion of the bar being behind the hand. Okay, so it's time to do some text. I think I'm going to pick this orange color that I haven't used yet, and so let's drop that. Go ahead, slide your text bar across, and then just start typing what you want it to say. If I want to move something, if I just click on it one time and then use my arrow keys, it seems to be more effective than if I try to click and drag it. So I'm going to go ahead and probably just go with this message here. And so I can center it. I might just cut my bar off a little bit closer there. So I'll grab my eraser, make sure that I'm on my bar line, make sure I have a really tiny tool to erase with, and just make that as jagged as I can. Click, and then I'll just use my arrows, and I'll arrow over. And hopefully that'll look a little more centered. Let's see.